What's up, Zach here, and today I've got, at least for me, what is the most anticipated shoe of the year, and that is the New Balance Fresh Foam BBV3. Those of you who watch this channel a lot, or those of you who just put on shoes, know that the Fresh Foam BBV2 was just a quantum leap in basketball shoes. It was simple, effective, comfortable, had great performance, great protection, things that I love, from a podiatrist standpoint, as well as just from a comfort performance standpoint. And I really want to see if the V3s live up to it. I was going to wait on them until more of just the legacy colorways came out on newbalance.com. This is the bricks and wood colorways. This is a collaboration. So there's some special features on these that might not be, in terms of the uppers, like cosmetics, that might not be on some legacy colorways, but I gotta get my top 5 basketball shoe video out, and since the New Balance Fresh Foam BBV2 has been the #1 shoe on that, 2 cycles running, I really wanted to make sure I gave these, a good shakedown before doing that video, because, it's a big elephant in the room if the BBV3 is gonna be in that list or not. So let's get into them today. Here we go. Now, starting off in the uppers, a lot to love, a lot to make sure you're wary of when you get them. Number one, the lace line is all cuffed on the interior side, so the laces do lay a little bit more flat. And then as you go toward the outside, it basically is just a lot of mesh paneling and then really kind of tough paneling. It just encases it around the shoe. Then you get little breaks of that mesh paneling coming through. That outer paneling layer, that mesh layer, is the main breathing layer of the shoe. Now, that's all well and good, and there's a lot of stabilizing elements, a lot of foxing. The thing is, you go underneath of the shoe, and I think that's where kind of all the magic happens and some of the things that you got to look out for. Now, number one, a huge gusset on these, but that gusset also goes pretty far posterior and superior. So it's really enveloping your foot almost like a hybrid 3-piece, 1-piece tongue like in the new Hardens the last few years. And that's really cool. And you go into the heel counter and you've got, number one, dual density foam padding there in the back of it. And it goes really high, as well as has some stitching in there to where when you put your foot in, it's almost like kind of encasing you. It's a very secure, very comfortable feeling in the rear foot of this shoe, and that padding goes all the way down to the most inferior side. It kind of touches the strobel board. So just a ton of padding around there. So really no shocker, heel slippage on these without an orthotic is 0. If you put an orthotic in there, it goes to, am I feeling this or not? Like maybe just a little bit of movement, but nothing bad whatsoever. The thing is the tongue is incredibly thick on the most proximal portion of the tongue. Then it actually gets a little bit thinner as you go into the more meat of it. Now, there are 2 pads on both sides of those tongues, some guardrail pads on both sides of that tongue, and that is all well and good. The thing is, I noticed if I was really cranking the laces in the rear foot, I was getting moderate lace irritation. Now that's gonna get better once you break the shoe in, of course, but initially a little bit of that. Now, if I just kind of redid the laces and didn't tie them, didn't crank them as tight, it was fine. The heel slippage then goes from none to, you could feel a little bit of a nudge, so not terrible either. So like I said, just be wary of that if you're someone that really kind of cranks on the laces. Going into the heat mapping, you look on the heat gun, these things only heated up 82.2 degrees. I thought that was an absolute miracle for how much padding is in the forefoot of these things. It's got 2 layers of padding. Thing is, you look at it and enough heat is escaping. The shoe is lighting up, even in the rear foot. I should say mid-foot, rear foot. The shoe is lighting up with heat gun in there. And a lot of shoes don't. You'll see them heat up in the toe box. And the rest of the shoe, there's too much padding, there's too much going on. And these ones, heat is finding a way through. Look at it on the breathability mapping with that fog machine. It does take a second, but fog does start pouring out of the mesh layer on these. So even though there is a lot of paneling, and there is a lot of paneling, you're still getting enough fog egress, or enough moisture egress, I should say, and enough heat egress. So especially for a shoe as substantial as this, I thought that was absolutely outstanding. Now look at these things on the upper durability test, 10 seconds highest grit sandpaper. This is a little odd. Both the plasticky layer underneath of it and the rubber layer that looks like the nubs of a basketball, which I thought was a pretty cool touch. That's also on the midsole, it's etched onto there. The burr does work through both of those. It is, I guess, double thickness in the toe cap, but I'd like to see what the other colorways are doing. If maybe they have thicker paneling on there maybe. No, it doesn't get through it, and it doesn't even get to the meshing underneath of it, but it does start to work it pretty good. So I think on an indoor court, it's fine. But on an outdoor court, you might be tearing the uppers up just a little bit. All right, but getting into the biggest question mark for me, which is the midsole teardown, because I saw a black plastic piece on the bottom, and then I see a yellow plastic piece on the inside and outside, and lo and behold, it is a double shank. Love it. It is also a dual density fresh foam X, a little bit more high density as the carrier, as well as going into the midfoot. I'm seeing a few of these recently. We're getting higher density foam right in the middle of the shoe, which I like. I mean, that's going to give you more longevity out of the shoe, a little more arch support. Now, the shank on these things is molded, it's plastic, it is bottom loaded. I should say the longitudinal shank in these goes into the forefoot. And then that double shank, that basically creates the craziest amount of arch support I think I've ever gotten in a shoe. Now, previously the EQLZ 24/7, or was it the 365? I have to look back in there. Those had just the craziest feelings of arch support in them, just based on how the midsole foam rode up on your foot. In this case, it is plastic plus the foam underneath of it, or plus the foam over top of it, is providing that. So I will say these ones have the most feelings of arch support of any shoe on the market, and they better because the shoe is 3 degrees everted, which we'll talk about in the fit section. But all in all, the comfort in this midsole equal to or better than the fresh foam BBV2. It is outstanding. The containment on these I don't think is as good as the V2, which we'll talk about in the fit. In terms of upper comfort, it doesn't necessarily match the midsole if you're cranking the laces. Like I said, yeah, it'll break in, sure. And if you put a little foam pad, I think maybe even just a little small rectangular pad in the tongue centrally, I also think that basically just takes care of it, and that bumps it up to, like, I don't know, higher than a 5 out of 5 out of comfort. Now, like I said, if you do want to learn how to do all these different modifications to the shoe to bring them up from, let's say, the shoe's 3.5 out of 5 because of comfort, because of the upper things, and you want to make that shoe a 5 out of 5 because you love the midsole, make sure you do check out my brand new ebook, all on shoe and orthotic customization, as well as lower leg taping. All of my tips and tricks to make your shoes as custom as humanly possible to get the customization in your shoes up to the level that some pros get in theirs, using just materials you can find down at the corner store or over there on, whatever online retailer you choose. If you want to check that out, I'll leave a link in the description below. All right, but getting into all the different bounce tests on the springboard test, these took 82 newtons to get to 45 degrees. These things have a lot of structure to that midsole, and they have a lot of bounce to them. And that's the other thing. Look at the bounce height test. Only 33 centimeters in the rear foot, really no shocker. 36, or I say 39 in the forefoot. So 36 average. No, the Fresh Foam X just isn't it never has been a high bouncing foam. It's much more of a comfort type foam. But with the shank set up in these things, even just me bouncing around in these things, these things were giving a ton of lift. Yeah, a shoe's not gonna turn you into the NBA dunk champion, right? But there is definitely a feeling of springboard on these, definitely that diving board effect. You can see, the other shoes with carbon fiber plates in the forefoot don't take 82 newtons to get up to 45 degrees in that springboard test. These things just have a ton of snap to them. And they really want to come back to that memory, and that shank is crazy. So once again, performance as well as the comfort, especially in the midsole, yeah, like I said, equal to or better than the V2. All right, but getting into the outsole tread, basically is just one giant wave in the forefoot, then another pot of it in the rear foot. Actually is full length tread, but it does follow the shape of the shank. That's another thing we'll talk about in the fit section. So it does undulate, so it basically acts as decoupled tread. Now, these things slip on the grip test ramp at 37 degrees. The one thing I'm noticing though is in terms of static grip versus dynamic grip, if a shoe slips at 37 degrees, those seem to be the best shoes. Because other shoes that were 37 on the grip test ramp, also like these ones, they don't pick up as much, I should say, pathologic dust, right? They do pick up dust and dirt, you can see, but it wasn't deterring the shoe. And unlike the V2, where it would give a little bit, you can kind of feel the tread kind of engage. And I loved that feeling because it was just so confident. These ones just stop. And they kept stopping. And even after they pick up dust, it wasn't hurting the traction. And no, I will say I do not like the tread in these as much as I liked them on the BBV2. To me, a little more confidence inducing, a little bit chunkier. I just like them more than the narrow wave because, look at the outsole durability test on these things, 10 seconds highest grit sandpaper. And yeah, the burr basically just scuffs them up. I mean, not a millimeter of damage on these. And the durometer wasn't high, like 16.3. I mean, it's decently high, but it wasn't above 20. So I do think you can use them outdoors, but like I said, the tread is so narrow, I still think you're gonna beat them up. There's nothing there to share that friction. More recently, these types of treads have been doing better. It's just my own personal preference. I do like the V2 just a little bit more. Now you look at these things on the speed ratio, this is interesting, comes in at a 2.24, shank score of 0.3 bumps it up to a 2.54. And I think for a shoe being over 16 ounces for a men's 11, yeah, I think these are speedy shoes. And I don't think they're just speedy in the short run. I think they're speedy over the long run of the shoe. Because of how the shank is set up, the double shank Fresh Foam X is very, very durable foam. So I think these stay pretty speedy for a more maximalist shoe over the lifetime of the shoe, especially got an orthotic in them. One thing I will say is, yeah, they do have a lateral flange, and you get a little bit more kind of a fan out with the midsole foam. It's kind of etched into there a little bit. There's a little bit of a step off there, so there is some compression. I will say on court, I never felt unstable at all. But when I was messing around them and trying to get them to roll, whereas the V2 did not want to at all, these ones I could get. I think that's where you kind of have to talk about the decoupled tread. It's more of a flat tread pattern. I don't know if you get that little bit of feeling there. And I think if you're on your own on court and there's, you're not trampling on someone, I don't see an issue. I think it's when you're trampling on someone's foot, are these not gonna be as stable as the V2? Not saying they're bad for ankle sprainers, but I don't think they're, I think that the two ways, V4, V5, whatever, or the V2, I think a little bit better. Not terrible. Push-off power is outstanding. It was a real difference between me trying to make the shoe roll and then just me kind of out there in the world using them. Totally different. So I think most people won't have a problem, especially because they're everted 3 degrees, but just something I just should make mention of. All right, but let's talk fit. Number one, they've got an 11-degree inflare, so not terrible, but there's definitely an inflare there. Now they have a resting position of eversion of 3 degrees, like I said. That goes to 5 degrees with loading. I think that also helps with the stability in terms of going laterally. So like I said, not terrible. They do only come in at 28.6 centimeters of length, 9.6 centimeters though of metatarsal width, and 10.8 of toe box width, with only a toe box taper of 26 degrees, heel width of 6.1 centimeters, minimum midfoot width of 6.2 centimeters. So they actually do lock you in the heel a little bit more. It's a little more of a narrow heel, a little more of a narrow, more proximal midfoot, like right, edge of the rear foot and midfoot. But then the rest of the shoe is pretty accommodating, like a lot of New Balance shoes are. Now, I would say if you're a narrow, medium foot, like I said, because they're a little short, if you're narrow, I think you can go down a half size. If you get a little bit more lockdowns, you have to crank the laces. That'd be nice. If you're putting an orthotic in there though, probably just go true to size. Medium, true to size 2, you can go true to size. And like I said, if they're coming in D and 2E, just go, if you're a 2E and you want more room, just go up to the 2E. Although I had these in a D, had no problems with them with a 2E. It's kind of dealer's choice on these. They fit really similar to the BBV2. So if you got those, whatever size you were in those are gonna be just fine in these. It is nice because these have a little bit more padding around the rear foot. So if you are a smaller foot, more narrow, low volume foot, I think these are much better in true sizes for narrow and medium feet versus the V2. In terms of people I'd be recommending these for, heel pain, heel pain, heel pain, heel pain, heel pain, heel pain, ball of foot pain, they're, probably, if not the best, one of the best on the market right now. If you're somebody with a very high arch, I would recommend some modification to the tongue, just so you're not cranking down, because you probably have an orthotic in there. To be honest, I had less lace irritation with the orthotic in than with it out. But I also think that might just be because the orthotic was putting me in a little bit of a different position in the shoe. And so the lumpiest and bumpiest part of my dorsal arch wasn't getting, wasn't getting irritated. Now, in terms of a shoe that's maximalist, maximum comfort, but also gives a ton of launch assist, yep, I think these are it. If you're looking to protect your feet from all that jumping and all that pounding coming up and down, fantastic. And I think kind of like the AG4 was a few years ago, these are one of the best outdoor shoes out there for protection. So if you don't create a ton of friction, then on outdoor courts, they're gonna give you so much protection underfoot. And so maybe they're a good outdoor shoe for your joints. And like I said, the tread was good enough on the bench here. It's just that I know these thinner treads sometimes, they do not do as well on outdoor courts. That is changing now with all this new rubber science we're getting. So I might get proven wrong in 6 months to a year, and people are commenting on this video saying, mine are still doing just fine. Or people are saying, I tore mine up. So I'd love to hear your thoughts now as well as 6 months from now. If you are someone that is doing a lot of foot-to-foot combat and you're trampling on people here and there, I would just make sure that you give these a little bit of a run around first and do some things in low consequence situations first, kind of get a feel for how the shoe stops and just kind of how it handles those things. All right, love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. Love to hear if this kind of satisfies you from the V2 to the V3. Me personally, I still like the V2 just for, I can see how a lot of people are gonna like these more than the V2. I can see how a lot of people are gonna like the V2 a lot more than these. It's different enough that I think it's different enough and it's the same enough to where I think if you got the V2 and really liked them, you can get the V3 and you'll like them. I think, but there's definitely gonna be a dividing line there of people that liked one versus the other. But I do think if you like the one, enjoyed it, want to keep going in the line, I think these are, yeah, you can definitely keep with the line and you'll still be, happy after you break the uppers in. So like I said, love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you do want to check out, another brand new shoe that honestly really surprised me in a lot of pleasant ways, the new Nike A1, make sure you click into this feed up above, subscribe down below. Respect, rubber, and foam. I'll see you somewhere in the sneakerverse.